Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday to you, and welcome to today's episode of Always Right with Jeff and Steven. I am Jeff. He is Steven, and we are running a bit late today, so let's just dive right into it. Now, the top story of this week, of course, is that it is now apparently International Women's History Month, or no, it is Women's History Month, and one of the days this past week was International Women's Day.
No, it's Herstory month, you bigot.
Whatever. So and that means there were a lot of crazy stories about a lot of crazy broads and some not so broads. As you can tell, sexist humor goes a long way in my house. So,
well, what I'm just trying to figure out is why women make up 50% of the population but only get 1/12 of the calendar. Are you telling me that 50% of the population is only making up 1/12 of the accomplishments?
Set aside the fact that the idea of a certain demographics history month is stupid anyway, for several reasons, including we shouldn't have holidays for every freaking thing. But also, let's remember that all history is women's history. They've been there the whole time, and they've been there for basically every point of it.
But according to the left, they only get 1/12 of the accomplishments.
Just whatever.
And anyway. just so our viewers know that you have a bias against this, Jeff has a bias against all special days. Like, I'm pretty sure I got a tongue lashing last time that we had International Pizza Day. He was like, "You just want to gorge yourself on pizza." I was like, "Yeah, I do."
I mean, like, yeah, but you're American. You can do that anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
America, baby.
So yeah, I hate most holidays. Like, I think Christmas is probably the one that I like. 4th of July, Christmas. I'm having a tough time thinking of others that I care for.
Halloween.
Oh, no. Halloween's dumb.
Halloween's fun.
Whatever. Anyway, it is Women's History Month.
Herstory, bigot.
Yeah. Well, and here to wish you a happy Women's History Month is the Republican Party. So, this is really all they put out on Twitter that I saw. I don't know what more may have been floating around. So let's take this apart. They did this and only this, I think. It is exceedingly lazy. So, I mean, if you're going to do something, do something. But really the fact that they're doing anything makes me angry, because
I mean, this is why you're losing. That was your tweet, right? You retweeted this and was like, "This is why you're losing." And I mean, it's because it goes back to what we were saying before with Nikki Haley a couple weeks ago. You cannot play the left's games. You just can't do it. Even Jordan Peterson, I know you have some problems with Jordan at times, and I have problems with Jordan at times. But even he brought this up. He was like, "Yeah, this is why you're losing. You cannot play the left's games. You can't play by their rules and expect to win." And this whole debate about, well, politics isn't about I'm sorry, I was listening to Russell Brand earlier. That's why I slipped into a British accent. Politics isn't about winning or losing. It's about doing what's right for the people. That might have been true 100 years ago. It's about winning and losing now. And if your concept is politics isn't about winning or losing, it's about doing what's best for the people, you're going to be the loser.
Yeah.
So stop playing the game.
Again, I don't know if it's attributable to Aaron McIntyre, but I get a lot of my newfound information from him, and the quote that he says a lot is that politics is the art of rewarding your friends and punishing your enemies. And I mean, and the left plays that by that definition very well. This
only one half of our political structure is doing that, and that's why they're winning.
Yes, this is not that. We'll get to a great example of that on the right on the show today, but this is not that. Stop playing the identity politics. If you're going to be this lazy about it, you might as well have done nothing anyway. All you did was tick people like me off.
That's right.
So
you didn't gain any points for this at all.
Right.
So
yeah.
you're losing because you're doing crap like this. And again, I mean, we put a call out for the Baptists last week. We'll put a call out for the Republicans this week. RNC, if you want to know how to clean up your act, let us know, and we'll be glad to give you our consultation fee, and we will tell you how to clean up your act.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I expect a big check, but I've got ideas. So, of course, the GOP wasn't the only one to group to get in on the action. Do you want to talk about Miss Universe before we move on to chocolate?
Well, I mean, this is just a part of the banner that everybody sees at the bottom, how nowadays all the best women are men. I mean, the Times gives away a Woman of the Year award every year. In the past few years, twice it's been won by a man. So in 2021, Dr. Rachel Levine, who's a dude, won. In 2015, Caitlyn Jenner, who's a dude, won. All the best women are now men, according to the left and to their situations and what they think women are. And so, Jeff and I went back and forth on what to call this episode. And I liked a Nutty Herstory. I think it's a lot better than what I had figured out. But, why even have a Women's History Month when you can't define what a woman is? And you are letting men win awards that deserve to go to women. And so we've talked about Leah Thomas on this show and how he was Will and how he competed in the NCAA swimming divisions and he sucked. And then he magically became a woman 1 year later and then started beating the women and winning NCAA national championships. But on top of that, what's worse than that is he was named the NCAA Woman of the Year. You compete as a woman, even though you're a dude, you have all of your body parts to prove it. Like you walk into a woman's locker room with your Johnson hanging out. You're a dude, and yet you still win Woman of the Year. And so what Jeff is referencing now is how the Miss Universe pageant, if you Google it right now, it'll go, first woman owner of Miss Universe ever. And it's some tycoon who owns a lot of businesses or whatever. And if you just looked at him, you might think he's a chick because he is wealthy and he has paid plastic surgeons a lot of money. But the moment he opens his mouth, you realize that ain't no woman.
Yeah. So, and there's a reason that they go so hard so quickly on this sort of thing. Like it was yesterday that everybody knew how crazy this was. But once it has entered a certain circle of thought, once this idea that men can become women and vice versa has been accepted by a certain set of people, or they don't believe it, but when they realize that they want that to be the running narrative, it is almost instantaneous about how radically it gets adopted.
That's right.
And the reason, they could not go so crazy. They could say, okay, men can now become women, trans rights, and then, but not go the extra. Oh yes, we're going to give all of our awards to the one dude in the league. We're going to give all of our Women of the Year awards to men. We're going to not just argue for the sake of this position and make progress over time. We are going to go full bore, 100%. Not only can men now become women, but the best women are trannies.
So that brings up the strong cultural counter revolution that we are starting to see. If they didn't go so hard, the reaction wouldn't be so negative.
Right. But the reason they
do, go ahead.
The reason they go so hard is to hammer you into submission and get that much more quickly to the desired state that this is normal.
Yeah, but it creates a backlash. I think
Yes, for sure.
Newtonian physics absolutely applies in
Sure.
in the political sphere, where for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. That is why I'm starting to, I'm not going to say buy in, but I'm starting to understand your theory that at the end of all this is a benevolent dictator who gives rise on the right, because the left controls Hollywood. They control our institutions of higher learning. They control the government. Even when Republicans are in charge, they still control the government because of the deep bureaucracy. And the counterculture is just going to get so sick of it. They're going to let whoever it is who promises to come in and utterly raise the ground be the person who stops it all.
It's actually not going to be a benevolent dictator. The guy that you get in office who fixes all of this is going to be a tyrant.
Yeah. And because so I'm starting to understand that more.
The people that elect him are not going to care because of how crazy and outrageous it is on the other side right now.
I mean, listen to the speech and tell me that it's not crazy.
Right. This clip is from Dave Rubin report. We could not just find the original clip, so we just were using his.
The Miss Universe organization from now on is going to be ran by women, owned by trans women, for all women. For all women really around the world to celebrate the power of feminism.
For all women, I am.
You can't listen to that and tell me that's a chick. I mean, his voice is almost as deep as mine, and that's after he's had testosterone, had tons of estrogen in his body. Yet that's the nonsense that we live in, and you want me to tell my child who's 2 years old that that's a woman, and you want me to confuse him at 2 years old about what is a man and what is a woman. My son is 2, and he already knows who's a ma'am and who's a sir.
So let's
just
talk about,
because you can see the difference between men and women.
Right. Let's talk about who's really at fault here. And it is not the left. The left is going to seek and destroy. That's what they do. I have no sympathy. Maybe at the beginning I did, but I have zero sympathy now for the participants in this sort of activity. I have no sympathy for the girls that got slammed by a dude in the swimming league. I have no sympathy for anyone who competes in Miss Universe because eventually, I mean, I'm assuming that there were no transgendered people that won
this year.
Did they win?
No, they didn't win the overall thing, but Miss Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Which
I remember
notice the place that this person's coming from. This is the U.S. territory. Miss Puerto Rico is a man.
I do remember that.
All we're having now is a competition of the plastic surgeons.
Yeah. So I have no sympathy.
That's all we're having.
Yeah, I have no sympathy for the competitors in the Miss Puerto Rico pageant. You participate in this. You are giving it validity, and you are at fault.
Whoa, Jeff. Are you telling me that a girls' basketball team who has to compete against a trans girl on the other team, a boy who plays pretend, should just forfeit the game?
Yes.
What if it's a playoff game, Jeff?
Oh, well. Your sport
is going exactly what happened this past week. Yeah, that's exactly what happened this past week. School in Vermont, maybe New Hampshire. One of those. I'd always get those backwards. Either way, they were like, no. It's not fair. We are not competing against people of the opposite gender.
Good.
We're not doing it. And so, the teammates and the parents, they were all on the same track. It was everybody else who was crying and screaming about it. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take female. I think it's going to take a couple things. It's going to take legislators saying, no, boys can't compete against girls. Girls can't compete against boys, period. I think that's one thing it's going to take. And the next thing that it's going to take is parents going, no, I'm not putting my daughter in an unsafe situation. And why do I always bring up women? Because it doesn't go the other way around. You don't see women trying to compete in the men's weightlifting category,
Right.
which, oh, by the way, that's a new addition. They're letting boys compete in the girls' weightlifting and USA weightlifting, powerlifting, in case you're wondering. It never goes the other way around. So you either stand up now and say, no, I'm not going to do it, or you allow women's sports to be destroyed forever.
Right.
But you allow femininity to be destroyed forever.
We had to sit and listen for months about the like not just people competing against Leah Thomas, but his teammates, like at Penn State, talking about how they couldn't come out public. They couldn't talk about how he's a dude on the girls swimming team. They couldn't give everything. All the complaints we got until very recently, like the past month or so.
Yeah, like past couple weeks.
Were anonymous.
Yeah.
And
they weren't allowed to talk about it. They were told we're going to pull your scholarship.
You should have done it anyway. This is a basic.
Yeah.
This is a basic truth, and I don't know where your dads are. I know you're in college and you need to make your own decisions. But your dad should have been telling you this. Mm-hmm. You stand up, we've got your back, and you say, no, I'm not competing with this pervert. I'm not participating in this nonsense. No. Because
I'm not going to allow my daughter, I don't have a girl, but if I did have a girl, I'm not going to allow my daughter to be in a locker room with him. It's not going to happen.
Right. I mean, like, and it's not even that, like, okay, give him his own little special room. Let's assume everybody's safety and everybody's security is taken into account.
Yeah, it's still wrong. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It is falsehood, and you are giving it air. No, you suffocate it. And when he's in the swimming pool by himself, this nonsense is over.
Yeah.
Get your sport back. Because you say legislatures need to step in, sure. But they're not going to until that kind of thing happens.
That is just now starting to happen. There's a couple states in the past, like you said, month that have made changes to like upper level sporting, like, collegiate level sporting. But still, I mean, it's not enough. I mean, it, like you said, this is a basic truth. And, I know our banner is eye-catching that all the best women are men. But the only reason we're making that argument is because that's how far the left has pushed it. And if we're going to fix this, it's going to take people not competing, going, I'm more worried about the long term of the sport, of my future in the sport, than I'm worried about the short-term game of my hubris thinking, oh, yes, I could actually beat him. No, you can't. I mean, we've seen the Australian, 6'5" volleyball player. We've seen, I mean, these videos are around and are everywhere. We've seen the two boys up in the Western Coast who are beating all the girls in track. They sucked as boys. They couldn't make it into the finals as boys, but as girls, they're 1 and 2. It's happening everywhere. So how do you fix it? Let those two boys run by themselves, and I'm willing to bet next year there'll be some changes.
Right. Like you have to make a sacrifice for this. Like nobody's saying that it's not going to hurt, but
it's going to.
I mean, what kind of world do you want to live in? And
what kind of world do you want your children and your grandchildren to inherit? Yeah. One that understands basic truth and basic biology, or one who feeds into this falsehood?
So, well, in that same line of absurdity,
we have at least one more thing we got to talk about.
Yeah, chocolate is now super trans friendly. I'm sure many of you have been made aware of this, but Hershey's, they're very pro woman. They're very in tune with the feminist plight, and they wanted to show their support on International Women's Day, and so they put out this ad.
My name is Faye Johnstone. I'm the executive director of Wisdom to Action. We can create a world where everyone is able to live in public space as their honest and authentic selves. See the women changing how we see the future at Hershey's Canada.
Hershey's Canada put out that ad for International Women's Day.
And it's a dude. It's a dude. It's not a woman. That's a dude.
Again, they're going this radical this quickly because that normalizes it more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, because our history is that they hammer people over the head with this. You are bombarded constantly, inundated with this message. And because the average person just wants to be left alone and they want to live quietly, they say, sure, yeah, whatever.
They go along to get along. Yeah. They go along to get along just so they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah. Just shut up and leave me alone. And then they move on to the next project. Mm-hmm. And they've won. They've won. Mm-hmm. No more. This should have been, we should have stood up against this idiocy 10 projects ago. Mm-hmm. But people are finally saying this is a bridge too far. Again, this is like 10 bridges too far for me. But if we do not stick to our guns, it is going to remain this absurd. And until this is just your life now. We haven't even put on the docket all of the basically strip shows that are happening at drag shows across the country.
And they are lascivious. They are lewd and lascivious. If you did those moves in public 30 years ago, you would be arrested for public indecency. And now we're doing
it in front of children.
Yeah. It is the height of absurdity. And, so I was not a fan of the boycott, but I'm starting to become a fan of the boycott again. And the reason I wasn't is because I bought into the lie that boycotts don't work. What happened in the 80s and 90s, right? So the 80s and 90s were a response to 70s. It was a response to Jimmy Carter. It was a response to the social revolution. It was the response to the sexual revolution. And it worked. It worked. Boycotts against these awful companies worked. And yet we have let the left convince us that it didn't work. But it actually did pull back the culture a while there. But now, no. And so there's a new thing that's not, it's boycotts plus something, right? Where we're not just going to boycott something, we're going to provide an alternative. And so this is the business model that the Daily Wire has taken on. It's the business model that Ben Carson has taken on. This is the business model that Dan Bongino has taken on. And I think it's a winning model. I think it's going to work. You want to pull up the next clip?
Yeah. So the day, and let's take a moment to just admire how this went down. That came out on Thursday, was it? The Hershey's commercial?
Yeah.
And the next day, in the morning.
The next day.
This aired from the Daily Wire.
International Women's Day is upon us again. And I love an international woman. But our friends over at Hershey's, they don't even know what a woman is. They've hired a biological male to be the spokesperson for their Women's Day campaign. And they're calling that campaign, and I swear I'm not making this up, Hershey. Hershey. It's humiliating. And it's the reason that I'm launching Jeremy's chocolate. We have two kinds. She, her, and he, him. One of them's got nuts. If you need me to tell you which one it is, keep giving your money to Hershey's. But if you're tired of giving your money to woke corporations who hate you, and you're looking for a delicious chocolate bar from a company that actually wants your business, head over to IHateHershey's.com and order Jeremy's chocolate today.
Can someone please explain?
No.
And they have sold, as of this morning, less than 2 days, 2 days full into it, 300,000 chocolate bars. And so I've ordered some. And if the average price is $5 a bar, and it's not, it's more expensive than that. That means they've sold $1.5 million worth of chocolate in 2 days.
So the baffling parts of some of this is that, okay, and honestly, now that I think about it, they probably don't have a chocolate bar ready.
No,
Like,
no. I mean,
they have
I
not had
pre-ordered.
time. They have not
No.
had time to experiment with to get a chocolate bar. But they said we're gonna do this, and they stayed up all night to put that ad out the next day. And
But they
said,
have a business plan. They have a distributor.
Yeah.
They have all those things. And what we are saying is that they are going to send those out mid-April.
That's amazing. So yes, I mulled this over, and I think the Daily Wire does a lot of things to try and profit off of the craziness of the left, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think sometimes some of the hosts and stuff can be a little bit cheesy and corny, and have trouble sort of adapting to the time it is. But their ads, first of all, they're funny. I love them.
Yeah.
And they are right that you have to set up alternatives. We have to have a separate economy that is all our own. You talked about how we stayed away from boycotts for so long. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that's just a lie that the right took on whenever it got into bed with big corporations.
That's right.
I mean, you hear people on the right talk about how boycotts don't work. Well, those people are also being lobbied by big corporations constantly. And it actually does hurt. I don't think you have to look any further than Disney.
Yeah.
So we do have to create our own economy. You
have to boycott, but you have to provide an alternative. And that's, like you said, I brought up Ben Carson. Ben Carson is part of that Patriot Bank thing that they have going on in Nashville. And like they are starting to provide, I think it's him and like Rich from John Rich from Big and Rich, and somebody else. Like, so they are providing alternatives, because the boycotts, I think they do work, but they only take you so far, because people are going to go back to the product if they don't have something else to get. We are not sponsored by Daily Wire in any way, shape, or form, but this has been Ben Shapiro's like vision for a while. He's been talking about having a separate economy for a while, and I don't think he is doing this to be malicious. I think he just sees that this is the only way out.
Sure. Yeah. No, I don't have any. I don't prescribe bad motives to them. Honestly, they're when I criticize the Daily Wire, it's just because I've gotten more crazy than they are. It's absolutely right. We have to start building our own stuff, and they are. And I am thankful for that. So just Hershey's, I don't know what your deal is. But
it's the same thing with M&M's, right? And M&M's course corrected. I'll be interested. I don't think Hershey's is going to course correct. I think if they were, they would have by now. I don't.
They're also in Canada. Like that particular ad is from Canada.
Which is way more left than us, which is hard to imagine.
Yeah. So that is International Women's Day, Women's History Month. Stop with the holidays. I'll be a lot happier. But that's another thing that bothers me about them. Honestly, they are just another excuse, another opportunity to genuflect, to show your woke bona fides.
And to divide us and celebrate a certain group over another group. And I don't care what exclusive group you're celebrating. We need to be looking at American accomplishments. We need to focus on those things that unify us and not those things that divide us. We need to focus on American exceptionalism.
Yeah, another good example of that is June 19th. That was with last year declared a national holiday. It was specifically chosen so that it could be compared to July 4th. and undermine it. Whatever the argument for June 19th being a holiday was, and whatever you believe about it, the reason it was made a holiday was to compete with July.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it in principle. I have a problem with it in practice, right? The principle of, that was the day that Galveston received the news of the emancipation of the slaves, and it was basically the end of slavery in the United States. That is something to be celebrated, but not at the expense of the 4th of July.
So my solution is no more holidays.
No more none.
None. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about the presidential race. Speaking of American exceptionalism,
That's right.
This is a key talking point of the guy that we started talking about last week, Vivek Ramaswamy.
We have no new candidates this week. We're stuck with the same old three. I'm sure we'll have another one by next week, but we're stuck with Trump and Haley and Ramaswamy for now. And CPAC was this past weekend or past week. I don't know how long it runs, which is the Conservative Action Committee. And so they bring in a lot of conservative commentators and a lot of people who are running for president. Trump spoke at it. I don't know if Nikki Haley spoke at it. If I did, I didn't see any of her clips. And Vivek Ramaswamy spoke at it. And let me tell you, Jeff, I'm liking the guy more.
So we talked about this last week, and again, he's probably running for some sort of support position. He's going to give it his all. It's just the kind of guy that I see him to be. But the benefit that I feel that I talked about last week is that he is going to bring ideas and policies to the table that I want the other candidates to be considering. I want them to be try to take. People talk about like authenticity and originality like it's some great thing. No. I want you to steal from each other all the best parts of their campaigns, all the best parts of their platforms, in order to make a better platform. And I want people to steal basically all that Vivek is talking about, because he doesn't have the staying power, but he has got the right talking points. He's got the right policy ideas. This is what you need to be doing. So let's hear a little bit from his speech.
I'll tell you this, for the last 10, 20 years in America, we have celebrated our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all the ways we're the same. Well, you know what? Revive the ways that we are the same. Diversity is not our strength. Our strength is what unifies us across our diversity. And you mark my words, that won the American Revolution. It reunited us after the Civil War. It won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. It could still be hope for the free world. And if we can revive that over fractious group identity, then nobody in the world is going to defeat us. That is American exceptionalism. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless our great country. All the best. Thank you.
So, and that's his general pitch. If you listen to a lot of what he says, that is his general pitch. Meritocracy over identity politics, a return to American exceptionalism. It is an America first. We talked about this idea where Trump gets off the rails sometimes when MAGA starts competing with America first. And Vivek is an America first focused candidate. And
he even talked about the ideology behind MAGA. And okay, so for our viewers out there who are not students of history, MAGA is not original to Donald Trump. He literally stole it from Ronald Reagan and just took words off of it. Like Ronald Reagan's campaign slogan was, "Let's make America great again." And he just took the "let's" off and did "make America great again." Like it was not new to Trump. And so, but it was the right thing. So it's kind of going back to what you said, cannibalize it to where you're teaching the right things. And Vivek is doing a very good job of that. And he talked about MAGA conservatism, and he talked about how there's an ideal behind that, and it wasn't the ideal of Trump being the person. He talked about why people coalesced behind the idea. He talked about that in his CPAC speech. So I thought that was very good. But and
that's why I make a difference. That's why I make a differentiation between it, because America First is the principle. MAGA is now the Trump brand. That's
yeah.
Then sometimes those two are not in alignment.
Yeah. But just some of his bullet points that I constantly see is abandon the climate religion. It is a religion. If you want us to do an episode on why that's a religion, like, subscribe, tell us. Send us an email, alwaysrightjs@gmail.com. We'll tell you. End affirmative action, declare independence from communist China, shut down government agencies, starting with the Department of Education. I'm a teacher. I'm behind that. 8-year term limits for bureaucrats. Bruh.
Yeah.
Like, that's an agenda. That's an agenda I can get behind.
Yeah, some really excellent stuff there, and he's on those all the time. Like, he hammers those points every chance he gets.
He's very polished,
and a lot of
very polished.
Yes, a lot of that is those are things that people are not policy focused right now. And I don't know that policy will shine in the upcoming race, because it rarely does. But
it'll be personalities for sure.
Yeah, but these are things that are bold and no one else wants to say. Like, no one wants to say we need to get away from environmentalism. No one on the right wants to say that. The rank and file, the citizenry, are all about that. If you understand anything about climate change and what it's doing to your economy, your energy grid, your food supply, if you understand anything about that, you understand it is evil and it's going to cause a lot of pain.
Well, if you understand from whence those materials come, like, if you know anything, you know it's bad.
Right. But your politicians just hear that it's the environment and we have to protect it. And
they hear cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching,
exactly.
cha-ching.
Exactly. On the right is who I'm talking about. Of course, the left does it, but the right too. Divorce yourself from China.
Whoa!
There are 0 Republicans that will sign on to that right now.
The first time we heard anyone say anything about the evils of China was Donald Trump, and he was right.
He was absolutely right. And the fact that so many have their money wrapped up in China, that they're not willing to say anything, just it infuriates me to no end. But here is we have another clip from Ramaswamy, who something we've talked about on this show, that he's coming right out and saying, I would be shocked if anyone else in the entire race said something similar to this. I would be shocked. And if it happens, I will call it out and draw attention to the fact that I was wrong, because I don't expect this to come from anyone else.
Today, I'm ready to announce the second government agency that I will shut down in this country. We should have done it 60 years ago. It's hurt Republicans and Democrats alike. We're going to get it done. It's finally time to shut down the FBI in America. Today, I'm ready to announce the second.
This is incredibly important to understand, and it's very hard for many people on the right to come to terms with, because we are generally pro law enforcement.
We love law and order. We love it, but that's not
I personally know people who have worked for the FBI, and no complaint against those people personally. My mom works for the IRS. Like, again, I understand the evils of the IRS, but the FBI is a terrorist organization in your own country. They are a partisan wing of the Democrat Party. They do not do like you saw this with Trump. They do not perform their responsibilities under a Republican president like they should. And they specifically target right-wing voters.
Yep. I mean, they went
pro-life,
after a pro-life dad.
Yes.
Yeah. In Tennessee.
Multiple demonstrators and multiple pro-life demonstrators.
but they'll let these. I mean, Merrick Garland got taken to the floor this past week. If anybody hasn't seen that and you're interested in that and you're interested in what we're talking about, Ted Cruz, I mean, the whole crew just took him down. But one of the things they brought up is he sends the FBI in tactical gear after pro-life support personnel trying to get people not to kill their babies. He went to their homes and raided their homes. They go raid the former president's home, even when they didn't want to. The FBI did not want to go raid President Trump's home, and the DOJ sent them anyway. But yet they won't go after people who are threatening Supreme Court justice, who are protesting out Supreme Court justice's house, which I understand we have a First Amendment right. However, there are laws that have been passed, and one of those is that you cannot protest out of a Supreme Court justice's home because you cannot sway them. They are supposed to be impartial makers of and understanders of the law. Yet, FBI just lets it happen.
He was
Department
asked,
of Justice does nothing.
He was asked, in comparison with his treatment of pro-life demonstrators, he was asked what the FBI was doing to investigate the vandalism and terrorist acts against pregnancy centers across the United States.
Firebombing crisis pregnancy centers.
He was asked what the FBI was doing to investigate that, and his answer was that it was hard to investigate because the attacks happened at night.
It's absolute garbage. It is absolute garbage. Merrick Garland needs to be impeached immediately.
Sure, but this is a root to the root problem. And he's absolutely right. It needs to be abolished. Not only that, and I've heard I've seen comments about this on Twitter, and so there need to be trials for some of the things that the FBI has done. It's atrocious.
Okay, so let's start with the fact that there are inquisitions that are already happening on the left. Like, people talk about the Spanish Inquisition all the time. It's already happening on the left. Some of that needs to happen on the right. It has gotten utterly ridiculous the way that our political establishment wields their power against innocent American civilians. It is preposterous, and there needs to be some inquisition. You know what we need? You know what we need, Jeff? We need McCarthy.
I was watching. I was looking at a few tweets this past week that were pretty harsh towards Reagan, and the basic mandate that he was given by the American people to overhaul the government when he did.
Oh, well, the problem with Reagan is he didn't do enough.
Yes, it's absolutely.
Reagan was a good president, but his problem was he didn't do enough.
That's what I said. I commented on it. I said he was a great administrator, but he was not nearly radical or ambitious enough. He should have demolished the Department of Education like he wanted to. He should have done many things like that. Because you look at the electoral map and you just, why didn't he do more? With that kind of mandate. Anyway,
vast support. Yeah.
So that, I don't have a lot of hope that policy will rule the day in the coming election. The past few elections have sort of made me more cynical for that with that kind of stuff. It's usually
the past few elections is Republicans running terrible candidates. Terrible candidates.
Personality tends to win the day in elections in general, though.
Yeah, and it's like they went to an insane asylum and said, "Hey, who can we take to go run for Senate?"
Right. So, I would like us to actually learn about policy and look for solutions to how to fix the country. And I feel like if that were to ever happen, some of the things that Ramaswamy is talking about would be the ways to go.
Well, speaking of new policy, you want to get into a new policy.
So the problem I have in general with the grand old party, the Republican Party, is that we are always playing defense. As I stated earlier, politics is the art of rewarding your friends and punishing your enemies. The left is very good at this. The right is very bad at this because the right is, at least at face value, I would say that they're trying to keep all of us in line. But if you were to take them at their word, they're just very into small government. And we can't do these radical things because we're into small government. And we don't want to be like the left, do we?
Small government's not going to kick the trainees out of the public libraries.
Yeah. So I'm probably no longer a small government conservative. I've probably made that transition because
I think it depends on the topic for me.
Well, I think it leads to being taken advantage of by people who are willing to wield the power of the state. And you have to be willing to wield that power in order to fight against those who will also be willing to wield that power. But I have an example of a bill that has been proposed in the Texas State Legislature that is playing offense. It is rewarding your friends. And if put in place, I think this is a model that should be implemented across the nation. This is House Bill number 2889 in the Texas State Legislature. Let me pop a couple of... So this bill essentially rewards you for getting married and having children.
Oh, what?
It essentially, what it does is it reduces your property tax if you are a qualifying couple with a certain number of children.
So from my understanding, from my understanding is if you have up to 10 children, you do not, the 10th child, you don't have to pay any more property tax at all. But there's a discount for every child up to that point. Am I right?
Yes. You don't have to reach the 10th child to get any sort of credit. You do get a tax credit for
the reason I bring that up is because if anybody
children.
Googles this, if anybody Googles this, that's not what they're going to read. They're going to read, oh, you got to have 10 kids. Because I Googled it because I wanted to know what the headlines say. So I wanted to point that out.
So, and they define qualifying child, which is a natural child of both spouses, after the date on which the couple is married. So a baby born out of wedlock before you get married does not qualify for this exemption. An adopted child of both spouses of a qualifying married couple, adopted after the date of marriage. And then here's your percentage. If they have 4 qualifying children, it's 40. Basically, you get 10% discount credit towards your property tax per child.
For every child. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All I came across was shrieking harpies when I saw this online. I mean,
oh, I loved it. The responses to this. I could just eat them with a spoon. And then then you get down into some of the text of the bill that really outraged, like it. I was on class. I almost needed a cigarette after reading this. Like it's so good. So here's your definition of qualifying child. Read number 2, qualifying married couple.
Qualifying married couple means a man and a woman who are legally married to each other, neither of whom have ever been divorced. Boom! That's perfect. Yes, love it. Let's go back to the biblical definition of marriage. Awesome.
I was so ecstatic when I read this. I was like, I hope this is put in place everywhere. Benefit people who are doing it right.
That they are incentivizing correct behavior. Now, I'm not saying that someone can never get a divorce. I would go to Jesus's mandate, Matthew chapter 5, and Jesus's mandate, Matthew 19. There's one stipulation in which someone can get divorced. There's other situations in which people can get remarried. For example, if their spouse dies, which, hey, it doesn't mention them dying, whatever. But that is the biblical definition of marriage. And they are rewarding people who are doing it right. So, Jeff, what are you going to say to our critics who are saying we want a theocracy?
You're correct.
And why do we want a theocracy?
Oh, because the Bible is the best model for human behavior that has ever been published.
Absolutely. And so you can look up you can look up the stats on all these situations. It is every time better for the children that if mom and daddy are having trouble, for mom and daddy to stay together and raise the children, work it out and stay together every single time. This is Texas's, or some lawmakers in Texas, attempt to
let's give him
problem
credit.
we're seeing.
Yeah, so this is House Representative Brian Slayton of Texas. Let's give him props. Actually,
look at any metric. Look at anything, and this is what creates the best outcomes. This is when America was at its finest, whenever it was doing this, and its decline has come whenever we have incentivized the opposite. Y'all might not know this, but America's the incentivization structure is backwards. It's actually better for a single woman to have 4 children. That is the incentivization structure to get all the tax breaks in the world. That's the opposite of what we want. The war on poverty failed. We spent $22 trillion for people to still be in poverty. It hasn't worked.
Right.
Maybe we need to incentivize proper behavior. Maybe we need to incentivize people courting, dating, getting married, having children, because that is what is best for society. Good job, Texas. That's all I can say.
I mean, this made my week. This made my week because I struggled for a while until I saw this to really think about how we on the right would go by playing offense, like how we would go about changing the culture. And this is it. You put in policies that reward you for correct behavior,
that incentivize the correct behavior. Humans work off of incentive.
And this goes back to what I was saying about the GOP. The reason you never get this out of the GOP is because they make this argument. Well, we're small government.
We're small government. We can't.
When that's an excuse to just lay down and take it from the left, I don't need you anymore.
Yep.
Everything in our society benefits perverts and freaks. Everything. It is time to start doing the right thing and rewarding the right thing and punishing the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, we have these bills about how the legislature is banning, drag queen story hour. They're banning, giving hormones to kids and surgeries to kids for all of this garbage.
We didn't even bring that up this week.
Yeah. So Mississippi passed a bill. They're one of several who are putting things into place that, as a minor, you can't give them hormone drugs if they want to quote unquote transition. You can't give them life altering surgery, and it should be a happy moment. It should be, and it's a good thing. It's a good step. But I actually read the article that came out about it, and there was a representative, I don't even remember who it was talking about, like, if you're an adult, we don't care what you do. I was like, you know what? I want to see a bill that makes this illegal for everyone.
Well, this is where incrementalism works. Yeah, this is where incrementalism works. So that's the next step, but you got to get the first one passed.
Sure.
We're seeing the same problem. Like recently, Kansas had a vote on an abortion ban, and it failed. Kansas is a purpley state where had they done this incrementally, had they started at a 20-week ban, then done a 15-week ban, then did a 10-week ban, they could have brought it down.
Yeah,
right. But they went full bore, and it didn't work. And so we're seeing the same thing with the transgender agenda. We're going to start with, no, you can't do this to children. That's silly. That's evil. And if you do, not only are we going to lock you up, we're also going to lock up the doctor that did. And then we take it the next step. Incrementalism is what we use here.
And I would agree with that strategy. if I trusted that was the strategy being put
I
in
know.
place.
I know.
I don't know that. I think this doing it to kids is the hot button issue right now. And I don't know that it'll ever go beyond that unless there is someone like Matt Walsh and Libs of TikTok and those kind of people pushing it further. You have to have big
That are just doing the
personalities.
Lord's work.
Amen. Like Matt Walsh came to Mississippi for the signing of the bill and made a speech. He's the one who did the "What Is a Woman" documentary. Kudos to him for all that he has done on this issue. Him and Kaya Reddick, Libs of TikTok. They've done a lot of good work for this. And
and so
if they decide to push into, okay, now we're done. We've blocked it for children. Let's get rid of it entirely. These hormones are used as chemical castration drugs for pedophiles, and that's where they need to stay, kind of stuff. They're going to have my full support on that too, because we need to keep going.
Yeah,
we do not
so
need
we're trying to incentivize the correct behavior and outlaw the incorrect behavior. That is what the GOP needs to do.
And this is probably the big great job, Texas. This is probably the biggest personality and outlook change that has occurred in myself. This is me getting away from libertarianism, and what they would call small government. Yeah, the government should exist to incentivize good behavior and punish bad behavior. They certainly punish bad behavior, but
at minimum.
But I'm done with anyone who says, well, I don't want the government making those decisions. The government is going to make those decisions. Just make sure they're the right decisions.
Yeah. That's become the reality on the ground. It might not be what you want ideally, but you don't live in an ideal world. You live in a fallen world.
Right. So that is all the time that we have for this week's show. A lot of sporadic things we want to talk about this week. And I'm sure next week we'll have just a boo koodles of more crazy stuff to talk about. But we hope that all of you have a blessed week. We hope that you get opportunities to speak the truth and spread the gospel and all kinds of great things and maybe upset a few weirdos. That's always fun. So I hope that all of you have a blessed week, and we will see you on the next show. Bye, guys. Hey, you've just finished listening to an episode of Always Right. If you liked what you heard and want to help support the channel, please be sure to like the video and follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please consider rating the podcast 5 stars. And as always, please leave us a comment, whether hateful or glowing, as we appreciate the feedback. Tune in next week for another episode of Always Right with Jeff and Steven.